Hi, I'm Ted Rogers, and this week Len Kaplan has suckered me into a period on his podcast of What Do You Want to Do? Go!
Welcome to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Kaplan.
So this is a milestone show, and here on What Do You Want to Do, we have Ted Rogers, who was formerly of ESPN, and he has a dual career. He is now a paramedic, used to be the youngest EMT in the state of Massachusetts at one time.
The Two Passions of Ted Rogers.
Am I correct so far, Ted?
Yeah, I mean, technically I would say yeah.
And he's a barrel of laughs, always has been, always when you walk in a room, you light up the room, you make everybody smile. You always have done that. I never said
Everybody finds humor in my pain. It's always been great.
a little bit of self-effacing humor as well. So describe, Ted, how you first came into the entity known as the Cable Club, which was an after-school club that I ran for the cable company that I worked for. And I did that since 1985. So it's now 1985, and you walk in.
I walk in, it's like, this is my life, almost the sun here. It was January 85, and I walked into the Cable Club room, and you were there, and I just said, hi, I want to know how to work a camera. And you're like, all right. So you brought me out to the floor and showed me how the camera worked. And these were the big, clunky cameras. I think they're from like 1982, maybe 79. And I was using it like, well, this is pretty neat. And I had to go off to class because I was doing a study hall. And you're like, well, come by anytime. Come on by after school. I'm always here. And I had gone down a couple times before. And the guy who was there before you was pretty much like, sit here. Don't touch anything. Shut up. I'm like, all right. Am I going to do you great? No, just you'll learn later. Shut up. Okay. So this guy's not yelling at me. He's telling me I can come back. So I came back and kept coming back. And then you had to do a lot of, because you were basically the town guy for the cable company, that you had to do these other requirements to do. So I would join you on those things and do that, and again doing more camera and all this other stuff. And I was, well, this is really kind of a neat thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think it was, then 3 months later I had my first television show. I had done a couple of other things, and I think I remember my sophomore year, I think I remember talking to, hey, what do I have to do? Because in high school you're thinking of what for colleges and stuff. I'm like, what do I have to do this? What is it that I got to do? What do I have to go to school for? Like, well, I have a master's degree in whatever, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. Like, I have a bachelor's degree from Emerson in television production. I was like, wait. I can do this in college. And you're like, yeah. Wait a minute. I can do what I do here and get credit for it. And there's classes in this stuff that I can do that I'm doing now, and I can do this all day in school. Yeah. So you're telling me that instead of taking these classes that I hate, that I'm listening to stuff that I don't care about, I can do this all day and get a degree in it. You're like, yeah. You're like this is so obvious. How do you not get this? And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I know exactly what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So, and that took part of it too. And that's how I ended up coming down and just ended up. And I think what also helped was that I wasn't far from the school. I was like 2 blocks up. And it's funny because I remember reading something. Bill Gates, I'm not comparing myself to him, but I guess Bill Gates lived down the road from a huge computer company and as a kid. And he bartered for free computer time if they let him write code for them. And because he was only like a quarter mile away or something like that, he was able to just be over there all the time. And I
Amazing.
think, and I think for me that had a lot of it too, because during the summer I'm bored. Well, Len's got a show going on. I'll just come down and help out on a show, and I could stay after school because I didn't really have a whole lot to do after school. So I could stay till 4 or 5 because my house is literally up the street. I mean, I could see the high school from my house. So I think that had a lot to do with it for me too. I just lined up, and I was very lucky in that way.
Your house was the all-American house. I can still visualize it. I always enjoyed it when your parents would invite me in.
Oh, they loved you.
It was great. It was
They
great.
loved you. I think it was
great.
It was like, as I've said before, I think it was because, and not just me, but I know for a lot of kids that you made high school somewhat tolerable. And I think, I know for me, and I'm sure for a lot of others, that studio was very much a safe space. It wasn't part of the school. The principals didn't have any control. The teachers couldn't do anything. We could go in here, and it was completely different. And you're pretty much was like, whatever you do, it's going to go on television. I'll put it on. And for us, I think that was just okay. So and there were a lot of people that were much more creative than I was.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, everyone's creative in a different way, and you started our news show. We had a regular news.
No, that was Phil Burns. I did the sports.
Okay.
Yeah. I was more of like ideas, and then you put me into something, and I could do my role, and I was fine there. The actual nuts and bolts of putting stuff together, I could lose interest easily.
You hosted an amateur show, if I remember.
That's right. That was my first show, the Ted Rogers half-hour amateur hour. I think we came up with it together.
You were the perfect host for it.
Yeah. Before American Idol, we were ahead of our time.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking back to that Bill Gates thing you just said, and I'm thinking how computers used to be, these gigantic mainframe computers.
Yeah.
And
and even our equipment. I mean, the stuff that we were using was just, I mean, by today's standards, is like good Lord.
Well, the only thing computer related that we had was the CGs, the character generator. That was it. Everything was completely divorced.
Everything else was click it, time it up, and everything. Yeah, which actually kind of helped me when I went to college, because I had to do a video project, and we had this nice brand new editing suite with all the fancy stuff, and in the back we had this old clunky. It's the same thing that we had used in the studio, and everybody's trying to get time in for editing time, and this was the only thing available, so I was just able to go right in and edit my stuff. And at the same time, I was actually showing other students in the class like how to edit using this. Like, this is easy. I cut my teeth on this. I've lost count of how many things I've edited or had to make a little magic or magic cuts here and there to make something work. So it was a fun time, and looking back, like I said, it made high school tolerable.
It was a haven for myself as well, because I had 2 jobs, basically. I had the time with the cable club, you guys, and then I had to be there sometimes at night to teach adults. There weren't too many adults. The adults came like in groups. They had like Blondie Broadcasting, and there was another group, and then they would fade away. But at the times when I wasn't working for Swampscott Cable, I would have to go down to the Lynn studio and do stuff down there. But now this is interesting. You came into the cable club. You already had a passion, which was helping people.
Yep.
And you became the youngest EMT, emergency medical technician, in the state of Massachusetts.
Possibly. I took my test the week after my 18th birthday.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's quite possible. You can't take the test. I believe it's still the rule in Massachusetts. You have to be, actually, it is still true. You have to be 18 to take the test. So
yeah.
Mine was 18 pretty much to the day. 18, 1 week after I turned 18, I took the test.
Now, if it wasn't for the cable club experience, you probably would have become an EMT permanently and gone into paramedics permanently at that time instead of after your ESPN career, correct?
Yeah, I think that's a safe assessment. I think my life would be very different if I had done that. Uh, but I don't. But also, there's no guarantee that would I have done that. I think because I had that time at ESPN, I think that sort of helped me realize that this is what I really, really want to do. This is the choice I've made. Whereas this was the only thing open for me. And I have friends who've been doing it literally for the amount of time, full time, that I've been in licensed or involved in the field, off and on, and they have had 2 or 3 orthopedic injuries, neurological injuries, backs and necks, shoulders. They've done PT. I've been lucky so far. I had friends who are, if you're going to go EMS and become a paramedic, very few people do it as a full-time career unless you get on a fire department. And trying to get on a fire department is incredibly competitive.
I know.
The amount of time that I was at ESPN, those first few years, my friends were trying to get on fire department. So they were struggling. I was struggling in a different way, but my comfort was like, okay, I'm in the library at ESPN. It's not a great job, but it's an entry level job. But at least I'm at ESPN. I think that, and I think that time at ESPN helped me get back into it. Otherwise, I don't know. You don't really know. People say, well, if I had done this, I'd done that. But let's be honest, you don't know.
So I think from my observation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you managed in one life to pursue 2 passions.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
And that's amazing because that's what we talk about here on What Do You Want to Do? People pursuing their passions, and you got to do both of them as careers.
Yeah.
Some people don't ever get to do one. Some maybe reduce it to a hobby. Some remember doing some skills that were involved with that passion when they were young, but they never get to do it again. So you can't take for granted the fact that you got to pursue both, I think.
Right. And again, it goes back to things had just lined up for me, which we'll probably get into later on in this interview. But it just, things happened a certain way that I was able to be in those situations where I've been lucky enough to have those 2 spots. Coming down to school in Connecticut, University of Hartford, I ended up working at ESPN while I was in school, and that gave me that foot in the door to farther down the line go as long as I did. If I had gone to school anywhere else, I probably wouldn't have gotten into ESPN. What would I have done with my degree?
Well, I learned, I guess, the hard way,
Yeah.
that where you intern is pretty much where you're likely to end up if you let it happen, if you want it to happen. My friends or acquaintances, I guess, at Emerson used to hang out. There used to be this thing called the Wall at Emerson, the old Emerson building on Berkeley Street. And all those people interned at MTV. I interned at KBLE TV in Revere. So that's why I wound up in cable TV, and they wound up at MTV. And some of those people actually invented MTV Unplugged.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. This past weekend, I was in Colorado, and I was bowling with my brother's 2 younger daughters, and where we were bowling, they had screens showing music videos, and they were playing the video "Kill the Radio Star," and I said to my niece, "That's the first video that aired on MTV," and she looked at me, she said, "What's MTV?" I said, "Well, it's a channel that used to show music videos all day." And she went, "People would sit and watch music videos all day?" I'm like, "Yeah." She went, "That's just dumb. That's dumb."
Well, now they do it on their phone, and they do it on, I guess TikTok took MTV's place.
Yeah, and she was like, she was like, I would not watch videos all day. You would go home from school and watch music videos on TV all day. And I was going, well, I didn't. We didn't have, oh, good. Goodbye. I'm like, well, yeah, people did. That's stupid. That's dumb. I'd go outside. I was like, you're not wrong. I can't argue here. You're making a good point. So it's one of the things I find funny.
It is funny. Now, here you have 2 careers. One is basically in entertainment, however behind the scenes you were. It was video, it was fun, it was skills that are fun to do. It's creative. And on the other hand, you have lives are at stake when you're a paramedic and an EMT. Life and death, you see literally life and death in that
Yeah.
job. Uh, Describe the people in both, describe the ESPN people and contrast and compare them with the people you work with at ESPN, if you can.
Uh, it's really two different worlds. I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain because it's actually fun. I am not as stressed on a call. I tell people this. I found doing shows at ESPN much more stressful.
That's interesting. I was
Yeah,
going to ask you about the word stress, but I didn't think it had to do
because
with ESPN.
there's always what to do if you can fix things with the patient as you go along. They stop breathing. Well, we can breathe for them, a heartbeat, or we can do compressions. Live television, you screw up, you can't go back and fix it.
That's for
That's
sure.
it. It's out there. It's done. Everyone sees it. And we've all had. I once misspelled Heisman as Hesseman, and there's just can't go back. Can't fix that. We're done. No, it's on. It's out there on that show for all eternity. Nothing you can do about it. So, and I have friends who've had other big blunders. Pen is mightier. You can figure that one out.
Now, when these blunders occur at ESPN, do the other coworkers kind of make fun of the person who did it, and that sticks with you, or what?
Maybe afterwards, but at the time you're busy getting chewed out by the producer or the director who's screaming at you. You just go in. You just want to just disappear. You just or if it's not you, I also like if they're screaming at something because there's a highlight something screwed up. I'm just sitting there like I'm just making sure I got everything spelled right. That's it. I just don't want to be the next one to set everybody off. So
I hear you.
so that I tell people that it's funny because even in traumas we have attendings who come in and they're a lot like the producers. They're just I tell them it's like working with Gordon Ramsay. If you see him on Hell's Kitchen, how he's just you have docs who are doing that and yelling, and I just and I'm it's gonna get done. Relax, just stop. I've done people sometimes it's just a lot less stressful because I think a lot of it is also you know what to do and you can, like I said, you can fix things. Live television, you can't fix it. So
that's true.
But at this,
wow.
Yeah.
So here we come to the other great irony of your career. When you were at the cable club, I used to ask you to do credits and title pages for the beginnings and the endings of shows, and lower thirds, which are the names under the people, and you
hated every minute of that.
And then fast forward to later at ESPN, what was your main job?
For 5 years, I was a character generator operator. Only graphics.
And
the same job that I
remember
I was now doing 60 hours a week, 40 to 60 hours a week. Yep.
And you, as I recall, you were one of 3 people at the time who were in charge of that. Correct?
Not in charge. Well, for college football wraps, I was one of 3 people who were doing the college football wraps. So wraps are basically what we would call the studio show for the sport. So you're doing the halftime, the studio section of. So like if you're watching college football on a Saturday, the halftimes that are coming from Bristol, the highlight shows, those are called the wraps. You're basically wrapping between segments. You're wrapping up. So I did college football wraps for 3 years. So yeah, I was there were 3 machines for the day, and you were basically there from about 10 o'clock in the morning until midnight. And that's what you were doing, was you're just doing half times and highlights as you went through. So I was one of 3 people who did that. I was also on Baseball Tonight for 3 years. And again, there were 3 people who did 2 machines. One did the scores. The other one did like the specialty pages. And there were 3 of us who would rotate through for the week. So yeah, I was one of 3 for that. But there were a lot of other people in the department. I'd say there were about another maybe 20 people because we had so many shows going on. We had Sports Center, ESPN News, college football, college basketball, baseball, the NFL. We just had so much content being produced, and so much of it is live. It requires those services.
Right.
So
name some of the celebrities that you met at ESPN.
Well, it's funny. The best one I can think of is I was doing my first remote. I was in Cooperstown doing the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It was Tommy Lasorda, who had managed the Dodgers. I want to say Phil Necro, who was a knuckleball pitcher. Jaime Herrin, who was the Dodgers Spanish broadcaster. It was my first remote, and we're hanging out, and it's done actually not at the hall because it's so large. They have it at the Cooperstown Rec Center in Cooperstown, New York. So we have a facilities downstairs as a little studio for us, and we're all hanging out. We're watching baseball, and we're sitting there, and we're watching a game, and we're talking about how players are making a lot more errors nowadays than before. And I see this guy coming out of the corner of my eye, just walking down there in his suit, just minding his own business, walking around. And I look over at him and I go, that guy looks like Sparky Anderson. Now, Sparky Anderson was a manager for the baseball manager for a long time. He managed two teams to the World Series in two different leagues. He was manager of the Reds team of the 70s, which was a dynasty. And then in 1984, he managed the Detroit Tigers to the World Series win. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, that guy looks like Sparky Anderson. That's Sparky Anderson. Oh my gosh, it's Sparky Anderson, And our executive producer, he looks over and he's like, Sparky Anderson. And we're like, well, let's go. So he goes, hey, Spark, how you doing? And Spark's like, oh, hey, he hadn't been in the hall yet. He got inducted a few years later, but he's there because of Tommy Lasorda. And hey, Spark, we got a question for you. He's like, yeah, what? So we ask him, how come it seems like players are making a lot of mistakes today than before? And he's like, well, I think they're not learning the fundamentals. And he then proceeded to sit there and talk to us for an hour and a half just about baseball. And I was like, this is the best moment of my life. A guy I know, I think a lot of. And then later on, as we were getting ready to set up, we're upstairs and we're not on yet. And but where our truck is, every living Hall of Famer who's there walked by our truck, and they were about 6 feet from me. So I'm seeing the guys that I grew up watching, that my dad grew up watching, just walking by, and we're all just sitting there, and I'm like, this makes everything worth it, man. I was like, I ended up, I think the highlight of it, the best way to say it is I saw Ted Williams walking with Stan Musial, and Ted was in a wheelchair because he was like 80 something, and the wheelchair is being pushed by Johnny Bench. Some people say Johnny Bench is the greatest catcher ever. Stan Musial, Ted Williams, obviously everybody knows who Ted Williams was. Stan Musial was like the NL version of Ted Williams. He was a great hitter for the Cardinals for a long time, and a great guy. Never turned down an autograph, and he actually ends up. He would every year at the Hall of Fame, he'd break out his harmonica to play "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and we all sing along. So just to see all of that happening was just like, this is just. It's not going to get any better. This is a highlight. This is a definite highlight.
Tune in again next week for part 2 of The Two Passions of Ted Rogers. Join us then.